think I'm recording now. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Fuck Perfect. I'm here with my guest, Mark Cardone. He is a residential and commercial real estate expert, broker, and trainer. He is a father of 2, right, Mark?
2.
And he's a 4th degree black belt in Kempo karate, working on his 5th. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm stoked. This is awesome.
Yeah. So obviously people don't really know me that well and maybe not know you, but do you want to kind of share your story about how you got to where you are today with us?
Well, I mean, that's a ton of years to cover, but yeah,
Nice.
grew up, right up here in central New York. Very, what I call average, went to, typical schools, went to college, got out of college and really, it's interesting. Somehow I just kept getting thrown into sales jobs. I've been in sales since I was 15, starting with, gym memberships and karate memberships, working my way into consumer electronics, working my way into the rental car business, working my way into, medical device sales. And then one day I just, I wanted to do something different. I was tired of working 8 to 5. So I said, I've got a good friend who does real estate. And he was just a residential real estate guy locally. And I talked to him and I said, geez, I think I want to do what you do, because he seemed to be around a lot. And he had a lot of that time freedom. No real experience in real estate, actually really no experience in real estate. We had actually just bought our house probably about 6 months before I started. So I played around with, real estate and getting into it for about 6 months. Wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. And then I lost my job. I was doing a sales job for a consulting company that worked with hearing doctors and audiologists. I got fired because I was terrible at sales, which being in it as long as I was, I think secretly I kind of knew I was terrible at sales. But that really pushed me to kind of take a jump into a new career. So I talked to my friend's dad and he said, you don't want to do residential real estate. You don't have the temperament for it. You're too excitable. So he told me to try out commercial, and then got into commercial real estate, stunk at it for about 2 years, stuck it out and just learned as much as I could from whoever I could. And now I own a real estate company. We've got just under 10 agents and we're growing, and I love it. It's a great industry.
Awesome. It's interesting that you said you were kind of in selling, gym and karate stuff, like memberships, right? Or at least selling that, and that kind of like almost set you up for what your kind of like your areas and interests now, right? I mean, you're still technically, in selling, right? But different product, right?
Yeah, I was terrible at high pressure sales. I wasn't the guy who could, close, right? Like I couldn't go into a room and, set up the ball and then get the guy to buy that day, and use kind of the tactics and the strategies and stuff that we learn about, in sales, which, I think we all need to, we need to know those things and how they work. And I think, if people don't study sales, they should, because it just makes you more intelligent in the business world when people are trying to sell you things. But I really like relationship sales. I like the long-term plays, and really looking at the big picture.
I was going to mention that. It's like, I was just thinking about this, this week, speaking to a client where there's the concept of high pressure sales, and that almost completely devalues the relationship. And then I liked how you said relationship sales, because it's always about, like, hey, after the sale's done, are you around, right? Do you really care about the person, the best interest of the person? And that to me has always been the thing too, in my world is, yeah, I feel like I suck at high pressure sales, probably because I don't want to be a high pressure sales. Like, I value the person so much that I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I do a class on negotiating for the SBA, up here locally.
What's SBA?
the Small Business Association.
Okay.
And I work entrepreneurs on real estate negotiation, but just kind of negotiation in general. And I always use the story. My first, real sales job was at a local fitness center. It's actually a national fitness center. I don't want to use their name because,
Sounds good.
why not? But it's funny. They had sales scripts that we had to follow, and you know how you have set objections that people use in sales.
Yeah.
And the objection that men would always make was, well, I'm really interested, but I need to go home and talk to my wife.
Yeah.
Very standard objection. So the scripted response for that at this one place was to say, okay, so just so I'm clear, your wife makes the financial decisions in the house. And you think about saying that to somebody, and the gut check it gives, to like a man, and 90% of the time they'd get a little offended and then they'd sign up. And I said,
Sure.
I'm not comfortable. I'd rather say like, hey, why don't we schedule time to have your wife come in, and let's show her the facility and get her excited.
Exactly. That's my approach too, by the way, is to is to say, hey, let's get the other person on board here as well, because I have nothing to hide, as opposed to like challenging their ego and the power of the relationship, right?
Right. And the tactics like, stand up when you're talking to them, stand in front of the door so they feel like they can't leave. Like, that kind of stuff it's so big in, a lot of industries, because they really are looking for that quick money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I just had no interest in that, so real estate really gave me the ability, and I mean, commercial real estate specifically, when you meet a business owner, the odds of them needing like another location or a new office in the next 3 months is non-existent. You're really, I'm meeting somebody today for a deal I might make 6 years from now. So it really gives you that ability to have that long-term relationship mindset.
That's awesome. And how did karate kind of grow into your kind of niche of your life?
Yeah, I mean, my parents started me in martial arts when I was 5, and I'm 40 now, so that's 35 years of training,
Mm-hmm.
and on and off breaks and whatnot. But there's no rushing in karate. It's just in the martial arts. You progress at the rate that you progress, and you can progress quicker, by working harder. But there's no overnight success in the martial arts. Getting a black belt takes years. Nobody can start karate tomorrow and hack the system to have a black belt 2 months after, right? You got to pay your dues and work your way through.
Yeah, I like when I think about the black belt rank versus the black belt mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so you could easily have the black belt mindset sooner, right? But it's just gonna, and that mindset will set you up for the rank, but it's not gonna be immediate. But there are some places that, they definitely make their bread and butter on handing out black belts like candy, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's cool because you think about everything we do, right? I mean, business, parenting is huge, right? Like you have your first kids, I don't know how many people listening are dads, but you have your first kids, and literally you are not even a white belt when you start parenting. Like, zero. And
Absolutely.
you're continually learning new skills and leveling up. And the neat thing with parenting is, as soon as you think you have it figured out, the kids get a little older and the game changes. So that ability to flow, I guess is the word, and kind of work with it is just, it's essential in parenting, business, martial arts. Those things just all fit so well together. That's why I try to get all my friends involved in martial arts, because I think it just takes you to that next level.
I totally agree. It's a huge reason I am who I am. It shaped me, and I know we even came across each other's paths. We were introduced because of martial arts, and it was almost like 30, maybe 25-year, 30-year gap between my relationship with Fight. If you don't know, that's the person's name that we're talking about. But you guys invited me on your podcast. That's how I met you, and we just kind of like grew this little bond, this friendship relationship, and just realized we're so similar.
Yeah.
So like what, to kind of tie us back to the idea of fuck perfect, which I think we have a lot of little nuggets in there already. What areas for you, either it's kind of like in your mindset, specifically, were you seeking perfection maybe in your job or in anywhere else in your mindset? How did it change the progress, and what was
Hmm.
the result?
I mean, it's interesting, and it's, I mean, at some point, I think in life, just as you experience things, you decide that perfection is not really what you need to do. And I mean, business is a big, you know, part of that. Is people think, well, I want to start this business, but I have to be the best at it before I start, right? And I think
Mm,
there's a lot of things where people say, well, I have to be ready, I have to be good. Um, I always use the example of like a talent show at an elementary school. If you ask a 7-year-old, what do you want to do on a talent show? What are you great at? I mean, the number of things a 7-year-old will spit at you. Oh, I can do gymnastics, I can fly off, I can fly, I can do,
yeah.
I can do karate, I can do all these things. I can write poetry. And then as you get older, for some reason that need, if you ask an adult, what do you want to do on a talent show? Immediately they go, I don't want to be on a talent show, I'm not good at anything. And I
Hmm.
think it's so interesting that people make that transition because, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're worried about what people think. What will the public perception be if I start this business and I go out of my comfort zone and then it doesn't work? Or what if I'm not as good as the other guy? My business is going to fail, and I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to think I'm a failure. They're not going to love me anymore. Right. And I think that's,
Yeah.
for me on my side, I never really wanted to own a business. Like, I was somebody who just loved the idea of having a job, getting a good paycheck, working along. But then at some point I just said, I feel like I can do it better than the people who I'm doing it for. Maybe not as good as, the best people. Um, but just kind of that constant verification from people that said, you're good at this, you should do it. You're good at this, you should do it. You take the leap, and it works out. That's something I remember specifically. I was working at a job I didn't like, and it was in commercial real estate. This was right before I started the company I have now. A friend of mine sent me a video from Steve Harvey. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it was him talking to the audience after an episode of Family Feud.
Huh.
And literally, it was based on the idea that you got to make the jump. You just have to do it. The world will open your parachute and catch you. It works out if you put the work in. I literally was sitting at my desk at this job, like almost weeping because it hit me so hard. And I said, you know what, dude? I'm tired of being afraid to just jump off the boat and do it. I'm just going to start this business and see what happens.
So was your fear that in order to start, you had to be perfect, and that's what was holding you back?
Perfection and just the best. Which
Okay.
I think those two things are really closely related. Like, I think we all have that doubt. Like, who the hell am I to do this? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think and we touched on this earlier with regarding being a dad or father or parent, mother, or black or white belt. It's the idea is like whenever you start something, the reason you suck at it at the beginning is because you just started something new,
right.
right? And so we have all these expectations like, oh, I'm going to be a badass in martial arts. I'm going to be the best parent I'm going to be by preloading all these parenting books before my baby's born, and then all of a sudden your baby's born and you're trying to adapt all these things. When I was a teacher, I remember this very vividly. I was I was doing learning, how teaching methods and concepts, and I was doing my student teaching at the same time. And one of the things they talk about was motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic. If you guys don't know that are listening or watching, intrinsic is motivation internally for yourself. Extrinsic is like that piece of candy or that reward externally to you. So I had this issue with some high schoolers not wanting to do the work that I was doing. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go to the book and I'm going to look at this intrinsic, extrinsic motivation. I applied it, didn't fucking work. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do now? Right. And I think it's like the idea of the expectation, like, oh, I read these books as a parent. This is what should work. Right. And so we have this, and you talk about how much judgment there is in society. Should, I think, is a terrible word, because should implies judgment, whether it's from ourselves or from others. Like, I should be doing this, my kids should be doing that. These expectations we have of our kids performing on a certain level, and ourselves performing on a certain level. I think I messaged you. This is kind of probably a good segue into this topic. Is we have this constant, never-ending expectation for our kids, where it's like, okay, did you do all this? Oh, you did? Great. But did you do all that? And they're like, oh, no. And so our expectations are constantly moving or increasing for our kids, because we know what we have so much belief and potential in them that we keep pushing, pushing, pushing. But the feeling they get is almost like they're never good enough.
Yeah,
Right.
that's interesting, and it's why don't I read parenting books? And I feel like if I was going to write a parenting book, by the time I was done with it, number one, it would have to be 100,000 pages, because there's not one key for any given kid, right? I mean, sure, there's similarities, and kids respond similarly to different things, but it would be a really long book, and it would have so many, like, but if this doesn't happen, then this has to happen, and there's just not a perfect way to parent, and I think that's, because we're all here for the first time, right? Like, we all have,
Right.
unless you have 11 kids, you're never going to be that perfect parent. You're going to be always kind of learning as you go. Parenting to me, like, I think, if you talk about what got me away from kind of that need for perfection,
Mm-hmm.
parenting, because you're never going to be right the first time. And if you are, gold mine, right? But I think you're right. We have these expectations as parents, that our kids have to be able to do, this great. And I mean, we almost put that perfection into our kids, where we say, you got to be the best in the class at math. You got to be the fastest runner in gym. You got to be when realistically, happiness is really what we should be gunning for with kids. We should be making sure, did I make my kids smile today? Did they laugh today? Did we have a good time? That's
Right.
what's going to make the big difference in their personalities.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that's totally right. Aiming for those types of goals with as a parent, as opposed to these judgmental goals. And so it's like, what happens is, okay, if you want a great job, right? You got to go to a great college, which, I mean, debatable. Passing on, I'm not going to talk about that. Go to high school, you'd have perfect grades in high school, right? But now what's going to give you the next edge? Well, we need our parents to tell the kids to get perfect grades in middle school. What's the next edge? You got to get in all these activities and do perfect that. So it constantly is perfection. So you can pull down and down and down, and you see the kids just starting to feel like there's so much pressure to constantly be perfect, and it it's like you're setting them up for this ultimate pain. You're setting them up for this uh, distortion of what reality is. So they think, oh, well, my parents want me to do this, and I'm constantly chasing this perfection, and all I have is this pain. I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel like I'm good enough. I don't feel like I'm focusing on happiness, and so you get into this kind of escapism, right? They start seeking things like, well, if I can't feel like I'm good enough in one area, what what can I put my time into where I do feel good enough?
Well, yeah, and I mean, you say, why are, I mean, we look at things and we say, why are kids depressed right now? And I think kids are depressed because they're constantly comparing themselves to other kids. Like, where does perfection come from? It comes from saying, I'm better than this person. I'm better than this person. The idea of doing something perfectly, is really just being the absolute best.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the bar gets set. And there's a lot of things that add to that now. There's parental expectation, there's social media, there's all of these things. You said something really interesting when you texted me this morning about, should I feel like a bad parent, if I'm at one of my kids' events and I don't post anything about it? You know what
Right.
I mean? And yeah, I mean, no, like, no, you should feel like a great parent if you can literally just sit there and watch the event and have your kid look at you and notice that you're not staring at your phone. You know, you're not looking down, posting your pictures. You're not looking at them through the eye of that camera. You're
Yeah.
making eye contact. You're smiling and you're clapping. That's
I didn't even think about that angle, by the way, that we were talking about it, is the idea of when you take your phone up, you know, you have this perfect selfie or this perfect picture with you and your kids at a park or at a game, like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? You post it. And obviously that's, you're projecting this kind of fake life, right? That doesn't really exist. And you know, inside it's not real. But the perspective I was just thinking about was like your kid watching you do that, knowing that you're projecting this fake life,
oh yeah,
right?
absolutely. And that's
And so that, I mean, that's, and obviously uh happiness is, and is part, is almost, it's almost an immediate byproduct of abandoning perfection. If you start focusing on progress, you're like, wow, I feel like I'm able to meet. It's almost like you're changing the expectation. Like, I can, if I can make progress, I feel great about myself. I feel grateful. I feel happy, and uh, that connects really well with your health as well. And moving to that, my question for you, Mark, is where in your health did you used to seek perfection and now progress, or maybe the happiness from your mindset has actually helped you in health? Can you talk about any area for that?
yeah, that's an interesting question because I have never been I've always been healthy, but I've never been the healthiest. Like health is a focus for me in that, I want to live a long time because I've got kids at home, I've got a great wife, and I want to be here. And I want and when I'm here, I want to have energy, right? And I want to be
Mm-hmm.
able to participate. I want to be able to chase things and and not be laying on the couch sleeping all the time. But I think really where perfection has come into play with health with me is in eating. And I think a lot of people see this, and as somebody who really considers myself good at just doing things as I can. I tell you what, man, you get on an eating kick and you say, I'm gonna, I love the vegan lifestyle. I'm plant based as much as I can, but you go off the rails one day, and sometimes I'll let a week go by, where I don't get back on track for it. And that used to really bother me. I'd say, you know what, man, I'm just not good at this. I'm just going to give it up. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Um, you sit there and you look at your. I don't know how many people do this, but I look at myself in the mirror in the morning, like in the face, and I go, "You just screwed it up again." Like it's another week where you didn't, stay perfect all 7 days. So that week was a failure, right? And I think being able to say, you know what, man, I felt great last week. I was 5 out of 7 days, I was great. That's like a C plus. And a
Yeah.
C plus isn't what we're going for, right? Like we're going for a B plus or an A, but it's better than a D or an F, and it's better. And I think it's more important how I feel than, really ticking off that perfection every day.
Absolutely. And the people I work with, as you know, like, I'll ask, how do you feel? What's your energy like? What are you craving? I'll ask them, how are you sleeping? I don't ask really about the weight. Right? I
Yeah.
don't care about the weight. It happens automatically with those things. And even I mean, you look at like the growth of where we've come. Whenever you start, people will start from going from a shitty diet, the SAD stands for standard American diet, the SAD diet. They go from that to like this extreme version of a diet which they're not used to, and it also doesn't really reflect their favorite foods or the things that they're just kind of ingrained in their choices. And it can be very, very difficult. For some people it works, the cold turkey swap, right? Cutting off if they have a big enough motivation. And people are usually motivated from two things: inspiration or desperation. It's most likely desperation that has the lasting effect. But when people start to realize, okay, I'm just going to take it one step at a time. I'm going to do this and keep layering it. I'm going to do this and I'm getting better and I'm getting better. And it almost makes you feel like, I am doing good. I do feel great. I am making progress. If you have too much pain associated with, like, I fucked up again, I fell off the wagon again, blah, 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 you're not going to want to go there anymore.
No, that's right. And then I think the danger is you get to that mindset where you go, I'm not even going to try anymore. You know,
Right.
and I think that's where I mean, I didn't really think about this, but that's I think where perfection really screws you. Is you're not perfect. You're never going to be perfect. We're all going to have our ups and downs, our zigs, our zags. And I mean, kudos to the people who really can in all these things do everything perfectly if there are any. But realistically, we're all going to zag, and if your mindset says, "I screwed up again," I'm worthless, I'm failing, I'm not doing what I should be doing, then at some point that subconscious is going to say, you know what, man, why even bother? Why are you even wasting your time setting these goals? Like, why do we go through this? Why do we break out the planner? Why do we do all this garbage that you're not going to follow through with?
Yeah.
But if your mindset says, you know what, man, you felt great this week and you did what you could, and you feel good, let's do it again next week, but let's try to up it a notch. And you almost turn it into, like you said, that belt progression, right? Like, maybe I'm a white belt plant-based eater today. Maybe that
Right.
means my breakfasts are all going to be plant-based, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about lunch and dinner snacks. Then once I master that white belt, I go, you know what? I felt great. I can take it up a notch to that yellow belt level.
Exactly.
I think that's going to lead to more happiness than just beating yourself up.
And to tie this back even into your story, where you failed as a high pressure salesman, it still put you on the path to realize I'm gonna do it differently, right? That you're still gonna be like, if you didn't do the high pressure sales, you probably wouldn't. If you didn't fail at that first, you wouldn't have made progress to eventually kind of cultivate you to becoming this, kind of real estate
Yeah.
person, right?
It's funny, when I lost my job, when I was trying to get into real estate, I had two job applications in. I
Mm-hmm.
had a job application at a commercial real estate company, and I had a job a job application in as a bank teller. Because part of me kind of said, man, maybe this just isn't for you. Like, my mindset said maybe sales is just not your thing. And I remember I got an offer from both, and I said, you know what? I like dealing with people, and I like serving, right? And the best way to serve is through sales. That's really where I can add the most benefit, is by meeting people, putting them in the right places, getting that whole business going. So I dropped, the idea that I couldn't do it, and I said, let's go all in on something else.
Yeah.
um, Environment plays a big part in your success, and if you're judging yourself based on your sales ability to, you know, do those high pressure sales, and you're just not that person. I mean, if you're a fish trying to climb a tree, you're always going to feel like a failure, so I think finding, if people are out there and they're like, this just isn't working for me, then I think going out there and trying to find other environments where it might work is a really good
Right.
strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being on the call. And before I go, before we kind of end this, what are you working on right now? What do you want to tell the people about?
So
Uh,
it's
a lot
it's
of
interesting.
my kind of social media followers are actually in three places. I don't know why, but New York, Austin, and California. And I understand California and Austin a bit. I'm like, I don't know why New York, but what do you got going on?
It's interesting. I mean, there's a lot going on right now. The residential company, we're trying to grow. We're adding some new agents, which is awesome. I'm very lucky to have, really what I consider some of the best real estate people working for me.
Hmm.
The commercial business is really cool. And I mean, my focus is really brick and mortar. I love
Yeah.
retail. I love restaurants. I love food trucks. And as much as online shopping and all that stuff is becoming more and more attractive and easier, and people are moving towards that. I still feel like we're a hugs and high five generation. I still feel like if we can get that personal touch, and that high five when we go to a store, we're going to continue to want to do that. So, right now my focus, for 2020 is really amping up, working with brick and mortar businesses and trying to get them, providing those experiences that are going to draw people in the doors, and end what we're calling the retail apocalypse, right? And bring people back to brick and mortar.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just where, I mean, Gary Vee talks about this all the time, where it's like, underpriced attention, right? And so he's never saying that certain avenues are bad; it's just they're not really attention there. So I think you look at Amazon; they basically crushed the bookstores since starting back in 2000 and what 2001, 2002, and Amazon came out with video video stores or DVD kind of sales and CD sales and bookstores, Amazon crushed them. And then what, last year, Amazon, or 2 years ago, Amazon opens up a brick and mortar bookstore,
Yeah, right.
right?
And so I mean, so the value's there, and the brick and mortar businesses I work with, which is very relatable, to kind of what we've been talking about. But they always look at it and they say, you know what, man, online shopping's just killing us. And I tell them, the question I always ask is, do you think Amazon has any idea what you're doing in your store? And they say probably not. Like, they know how my business works, and they're trying to crush me. And I say, you know what? Amazon and online business has zero interest in what these stores are doing. Their interest is on providing the best customer experience that they can provide on their platform,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if business owners would start focusing on that and just forget about what the competition is doing, you need to be aware, but focus on the customers. Make sure you're doing that. I mean, I take that approach with parenting too. I say, you know what? Forget what other parents are doing, like we said with social media. Forget
Right.
about all that stuff. Focus on giving the best experience to the people that you're interacting with every day, and things will just be awesome.
Awesome, Mark. I think that's basically, it's like the idea of people used to prioritize connection, and then all of a sudden, remote control of the TV started this convenience trend. Convenience has been selling like crazy. Amazon's it's just right in line with convenience, so people can get things delivered to their house and can still stream Netflix, right? So, and convenience has sold, so it's people value it so much where they've devalued connection. And I think, like what you're saying, what you're focusing on for 2020, I think there's going to be a huge upset, and people are going to start now valuing that connection because now they don't get it, and now they're seeking it. You see these rise of these mental health issues um, across everywhere, and so now we're going to be constantly seeking this connection, right?
Absolutely, dude. I mean,
Yeah,
hugs, high fives, and giving back. This is what we're here for. This is why there's people, and we're not just
yeah.
machines. And I hope to see that this year. That would be amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it.
Cool, dude. Thanks for having me on. This was awesome, and I wish you the best of luck with the podcast.
Thanks.